Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Michael Trigg, tight end out of Baylor. We're going to take a look at his athleticism, his production profile, his injury history, take a look at his production versus ranked competition specifically, take a look at his situation, his quarterback play, how good was it, for instance. Take a look at some advanced stats, take a look at some of his strengths and weaknesses while I show you some all-22 film of his. Talk about where he might be drafted, a couple of potential team fits, and then finally where we might be taking him in rookie drafts. So watch to the end of this video and you should have a pretty good idea. Taking a look at his athleticism, we don't have official numbers yet. Player Profiler has him projected to run a 4.70, which would be 67th percentile, but a height and weight adjusted speed score for that of 85.6 would only be 33rd percentile. I've seen anywhere from 4.60 to 4.70 online. If he was closer to the 4.60 range, that would really help his speed score. So we don't exactly know. I wouldn't describe his long speed as particularly great. I think it's fine, but I do think his acceleration is pretty good. Taking a look at his height, he ended up being 6'4", 240 pounds. Has 34-inch arms, though. That is 91st percentile. And he is not an early declare. He's going to be 23.7 right now, going to be 24 during his rookie season. Now, with tight ends, it doesn't matter nearly as much your age coming in as it does for wide receivers specifically. With wide receivers, you really want early declares preferably, but overall, it's not like he was a 25-year-old tight end in college dominating against 18-year-olds, to be fair to him. Taking a look at his production profile, we'll talk about his injury history right after this, but started his career out at USC, had 13 targets, 7 receptions, 109 yards, and 1 touchdown in his first season in college. Typically, tight ends don't, Brock Bowers right out of the gate with 1,000 yards in the SEC, so that's definitely understandable. Then transferred to Ole Miss in his first season there, 24 targets, 17 receptions, 156 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. We'll talk about injuries here, but in 2023, only 8 targets, 4 receptions, 65 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Then transferred to Baylor in 2024, and in 2024, he had 49 targets, 30 receptions, 392 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns, before really breaking out this season in 2025 at Baylor, posting career highs with 85 targets, 50 receptions, 694 receiving yards, and 6 receiving touchdowns to go along with a career best PFF receiving grade of 77.3. Now, taking a look at his injury history, initially upon looking at this, you might think, wow, it's filled with injury history, but really not as bad as you might think. In 2021, he did suffer a serious looking lower leg / knee injury against Utah that required him to be carted off the field and use crutches, but he didn't tear his ACL, so thank goodness for that. Then in 2022 at Ole Miss, he did suffer a broken collarbone, but it's not like one of these degenerative knee injuries or something that I'd be worried about long term, for instance. In 2024, he missed a game against BYU due to undisclosed reasons, not particularly worrisome. In 2025, this season, he suffered a shoulder bruise, and he missed the final game against Houston due to an undisclosed injury, but did play 11 games this year. Really nothing that would overly concern me. Little nicks and bruises here, and one serious, broken collarbone injury, but once again, nothing that I would be remotely worried about for the long term with him. Talking about his quarterback play, he received per PFF the 69th best quarterback play in the nation with the 67.4 PFF pass grade. He was used a lot in the short and intermediate areas of the field, not a lot deep, kind of simpler routes that are easier for his quarterback to complete. I think that you could argue he was somewhat limited by his quarterback play to a degree. Definitely could have. There are players who have received significantly worse quarterback play overall, believe me. But if he had been at one of these top programs with better quarterback play, I do think he potentially could have produced better for us statistically. So overall, that is something to note when you think about his end of season numbers here. Taking a look at how he played against ranked competition. Now, remember, he wasn't part of a powerhouse offense or anything. He didn't receive, among the best of quarterback play, for instance. So to help contextualize that a little bit, keep that in mind. But against number 17 SMU, 4 for 38 and no touchdown. Against number 21 Cincinnati, 3 for 30 and a touchdown. And against number 13 Utah, 3 for 42 and no touchdown. So in none of those games was he shut out, but he wasn't dominant either. We did see a couple of pretty decent games this season, against Auburn, for instance, 7 for 99 and a touchdown, and against KSU, 8 for 155. But overall, not too many particularly dominant performances, but at the very least, he wasn't shut out. And once again, remember, it wasn't like he was receiving the world's best quarterback play or anything. Taking a look at some advanced stats here, I took a look at FBS tight ends with 50 or more targets. That was a sample size of 28 total players. Trigg ran 319 routes on the season, which was 83.5%. Taking a look at his alignment specifically, he played 69.4% of the time in the slot. He was typically a move tight end. Out wide, he played 2.9% of the time, and in line, 27.2% of the time. Really just typical of a move tight end to see this type of usage with a little bit of variance depending on the player and the offense in which they're running. His yards per out run of 2.18 was third among the sample size. Very impressive. His first downs per out run of 0.10 were eighth in the sample size. Solid there as well. His yak perception of 4.5 was 21st, but he is very, very good after the catch. You'll see that in some of the all 22. His 17 missed tackles forced, for instance, were second in the sample size. And pretty significantly far away from some of the guys that are after spot 4 or 5 or so. Now, contested catchability, it was actually the exact same as Eli Stowers at 41.2%, 7 out of 17. I did see some decent contested catches, but I did see some drops as well. Now, you'll see, I believe there are probably 4 clips that I'll show you in the all-22 that will demonstrate some of this. But, you know, he does have some consistency issues, especially on some of these fade routes along the goal line, where he bobbled away a couple of potential touchdowns. But once again, the coverage on some of those was good, to be fair to him. Taking a look at his targets, he had 85 on the season at 7.7 per game. Good involvement for a collegiate tight end. 50 receptions at 4.5 per game. Not particularly efficient, but once again, the quarterback play was not great either. His yards of 694 were 63.1 per game, solid number there, and his 6 touchdowns at 0.5 per game are also pretty solid. Taking a look at something interesting I found on X, every tight end drafted round 2 to 3 with career broken tackle rate above 20%. Taking a look at their career yards per out run and then their career missed tackles forced per reception. For instance, Harold Fannin was just a ridiculous prospect. I don't know why people weren't as high on him as they should have been. 2.99 career yards per out run with a 0.288 missed tackles forced per reception on his career. That is ridiculous. Tucker Kraft also very good at a 2.33 and 0.262. Gerald Everett, who was also a pretty good prospect coming out, 2.28 and 0.523, which is just insane for the missed tackles forced rate. I mean, that's ludicrous. Then we have Sam Laporta at a 1.89 and 0.228. Now, Michael Trigg, he has split out in the middle here. So he's just under that Laporta mark at 1.87 to Laporta's 1.89. But his 0.287 career missed tackles forced rate is actually higher than Laporta's, for instance. Then you have somebody like Ben Sinnott, who was at a 1.61 and 0.246. Darnell Washington, a 1.60 and a 0.311. And Jonnu Smith at a 1.55 and 0.297. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, The Dawn, and Any Buckeye. Thank you guys. I'm doing this full time now, and without your support, this would not be possible. If you'd like to become a member, I'm going to leave a link in both the comment section and description of this video. You'll receive not only, but including access to a Discord where we have a channel where we have NFL and college football talk, as well as a channel where we have fantasy football talk, and a third channel where we laugh at poor trade offers that we've been offered in fantasy football. But if you'd like to, you can always DM me with private, questions if you don't wish for it to be known by any community members. But you'll also get help with building your fantasy football teams every year. I'll use wins above replacement, as well as just looking at the general lineup and scoring settings to help you with your teams each year. I'll help you with trades that are advantageous based on those factors as well. You'll be part of a fun and growing active community. You'll not only receive access to videos early guaranteed, but you'll also have the ability to ask for personal videos that you and only you can view. Or potentially, if you'd like something to be shown on the channel, you'll have preferential treatment there as well. So please consider becoming a member. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video. While some all-22 clips display some of what I'm going to be mentioning here, I'm going to read you a brief synopsis of Michael Trigg's strengths and potential areas of improvement. So Michael Trigg is a tight end out of Baylor who projects to be a move tight end at the next level. He stands at 6'4" and 240 pounds. So he does meet the minimum thresholds of being right around 240 and being at least 6'3" in general to be a non-outlier at the tight end position nowadays. He didn't run a 40-yard dash, but is projected to have run somewhere between a 4.60 and a 4.70. He has decent top end speed for a tight end. I wouldn't describe it as spectacular, but he does have impressive acceleration, in my opinion. As far as how he wins, he does it primarily in the short area of the field where he's often lined up in the slot. He runs slant routes, crossers, stab routes, option routes, quick outs, tight end screens, and a lot of fade routes along the goal line. He has great ball carrier vision and will be really dangerous in the screen game after the catch as he breaks tackles consistently and immediately turns into a ball carrier after the catch, as highlighted by his 17 missed tackles forced, which were second among all FBS tight ends with 50 or more targets this past season. He also has pretty good body control, and catches the ball well away from his frame at times, making him a potential danger in the red zone and deep down the field. Now, the only issue with that, he doesn't have the best contested catch ability, as evidenced by his sub 50% contested catch rate on 17 total targets, which was identical to Eli Stowers. And he did have multiple dropped touchdowns in the red zone on fade routes. But to be fair, some of those were well contested with good coverage. So it could just be some variance as far as that's concerned. But I would describe drops in contested catch situations as a potential weakness for him. Now, unlike Stowers, as far as blocking is concerned, he plays with a lot of effort. Not that Stowers doesn't play with effort, but he's more successful here than Stowers. He displays a good anchor and hand placement to stall edge players and linebackers in the run game. So I don't think he's going to be necessarily moved off the field in obvious run situations, for instance. And if a team likes to marry the run in the pass game, I think he can be on the field at all times. So no issues there, in my opinion. And overall, I would describe Trigg as a dynamic playmaking move tight end who possesses great after the catch ability, is a solid blocker to a potentially above average blocker, especially for somebody of his size and a move tight end in particular, and should be one of the first 3 to 4 tight ends drafted this season. Taking a look at his projected draft capital, I've seen anywhere from round 2 to round 4. I think late round 2 to round 3 is where you probably should go, in my opinion, but it wouldn't shock me if he went around 4 either. If I had to guess, I'd say on the earlier side of this estimate as opposed to the latter half, but anything's possible here, especially considering we didn't get athletic testing from him. Now, strengths. His yak ability, his 17 missed tackles forced, he turns into a ball carrier immediately after the catch, bounces off of tackles. Just pretty dynamic there. He has quick acceleration. Once again, his top end speed is fine, but very good acceleration. And he has a lot of positional versatility. He can be used in the slot as an inline tight end. I think he can be used in the screen game. I think he could be used as a ball carrier as well. Depending on the offense, if he lands in one of these McVay or Shanahan offenses, I think he could do wonders. Potential areas to improve upon. Remember, he was 7 out of 17 in terms of contested catching. That's sub 50%. We did see a couple of drops along the goal line on some of those fade routes, although some of it coverage was pretty good, to be fair to him. And zone coverage, something I didn't mention yet. At times, he would start to drift into defenders instead of just staying where he was at. I do think he needs to improve there, but I wouldn't describe it as a recurring issue to the point where I think he needs drastic improvement there. But I do think that's something to note that, in general, teams are running a little bit more zone than man, depending on the team once again. So that will be something he does need to improve upon. And so my pro comparison, I think I've seen this from a couple of other places as well. Gerald Everett, I think that's pretty accurate. A move tight end who can have a little bit of positional versatility, but is going to be really good from the slot, especially. An above average receiver for a tight end that can also block enough to not necessarily be taken off the field as well. Very, very reasonable comp, in my opinion. Where do I think he'll probably be projected to be ranked? Probably around tight end 18 to 25. Once again, depending on the landing spot itself, as well as the overall draft capital. Potentially could be a little bit higher if he gets, that second round draft capital and a really good team fit. But I'd say the community will probably have him in that 18 to 25 range. Now, a couple potential team fits. Now, I didn't list a specific draft number because the variance as to where he's projected to be drafted is between 3 total rounds. So I do think the Panthers, 49ers, Broncos, and Patriots, all teams, that I thought would be good for Stowers would also be good for Trigg because I think they're both move tight ends, right? I think the Panthers could use an upgrade for Bryce Young. I think the 49ers could potentially look for a Kittle replacement. I think the Broncos could use a good tight end. They did just get Jalen Waddle, but imagine if they also had a move tight end and an upgrade over Evan Ingram from this past season. And I think the Patriots could potentially look for a long-term Hunter Henry replacement as well. Where would I probably take him in rookie drafts? Well, given that we don't really know exactly where he's going to be drafted, I think somewhere in the 3rd round would be fair. But that could definitely move up if he gets, that 2nd round draft capital and a good team fit. So keep that in mind. At the time of me recording this video and releasing it, we just don't know any of this information yet. Now, taking a look at my current tight end rankings, I do have Sadiq in tier 1 by himself. He's projected to be 1st round, pretty much locked in. Probably the best athlete we've ever seen at the tight end position when you take into account his speed score as well as his burst score combined. Not the best production, and it's really more of a projection, but there's some elite upside there. I think he's in his own tier. I do like Eli Stowers a little bit more than I like Michael Trigg, but I could understand the argument for Trigg because I do think he's a substantially better blocker. I just think that the athleticism that Stowers has is a potential deal breaker in between the two of them that I would give in Stowers' favor. I do think he's a better receiver, but in terms of a combination of blocking and receiving, I do think Michael Trigg takes a cake there. But because this is more so fantasy related and we don't know the specific draft capital and team fits yet, I am going to lean Stowers in tier 2 and have Michael Trigg in tier 3. But I do really like Michael Trigg, and I do think that depending on the landing spot in the draft capital, he could be a useful asset for us in fantasy. And so what are your thoughts on Michael Trigg? Let me know below in the comment section. Is there something about his game that perhaps I didn't even mention? If so, let me know below. I'm curious what you guys think. Where do you have the top 3 guys as far as players that in which I've released videos for? Let me know below. Once again, thank you to my Patreon members. Without your support, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you. If you would like to become a member, I'm going to leave a link in the description. I would really appreciate your support. If you cannot afford to or do not wish to, if you could just like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, I'd really appreciate it. With all that being said, thanks guys, and have a good day.